That's an
Interesting,
achievement.
I'll look it up.
I'm now going to call to order the July 10th, 2018 meeting of the Stowe Board of Selectmen. Seeing that a quorum is present, first thing in our order of business is public input. As always, is there any member of the public here who has a matter of concern that they wish to bring to the board's attention that's not already on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll move on to the chair's comments. I am not the chair, and I'm not even the clerk. Originally, it was my intention not to make any announcements tonight. But there are two matters which should be brought to the board, to the attention of our community. One is the Stowe Community Center, the Stowe Youth Police and Fire Academy Care Package Project for our troops. Will be held on July 19th, 2018 from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. If I'm not mistaken, it's at the community center. And the community is encouraged to donate stationery products, puzzles, books and games, coffee, snacks, and toiletries. I'm sure if you have questions about either the event, its location, or what are acceptable donations, then you could contact either the Stowe Police Department or the Fire Department. They would be able to put you in touch with the Academy Care Package Project organizers. But the thing that I really wanted to address tonight, and this is a slow building tragedy, is the passing of Kathy O'Keefe this past week. Those who do not know Kathy, she was a very energetic and ambivalent, wonderful participant to a number of community events and affairs, including the Girl Scouts, a lot of school projects. She was also a member of the LACAC, or staff member for quite some time. She passed away, as I said, this past week from a long-standing terminal illness. She leaves a husband and two children, one of whom's at Minuteman School. It's a, as I said, a tragic occurrence, but she will be missed. And before I call for a moment of silence, I'd like to announce the arrangements that have been made. There will be what my family would call a wake this Thursday, July 12th, from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Fowler Kennedy Funeral Home on Concord Street in Maynard. And her funeral mass will be celebrated on Friday, July 13th, 2018 at 10 a.m. at Holy Family Parish at 12 Monument Square, again, Concord. And then the burial will follow at Brookside Cemetery in Stowe. I take it then that members of the community and friends of Kathy are invited to all three. I only note further that Kathy loved the color of red, often referring to it as her signature color. So it is suggested that if you're going to attend the funeral, you wear a bit of red. So now I will call for a moment of silence and remembrance of Kathy O'Keefe, excuse me, and all of her wonderful contributions to our community. Is there anything that anyone would like to add about Kathy?
You've covered it well.
Then I'll move on. Meeting minutes, those have been provided to everyone. I looked at them, they look fine to me, but I'll take a motion.
Chairman, I move to accept the minutes of June 26th meeting of the Board of Selectmen as submitted.
I've got one.
Do you have a second first?
I'll second it.
We have a second, now it's open for discussion. Please, Mr. Lane.
Second page, under economic development, job fair. it's listed down there as being on June 29th. I think it was June 28th is on the first page. So, minor.
Anything else? Is everyone in agreement with Mr. Ryan's change?
Yes.
And seeing no further comments, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of accepting the minutes of June 28th as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It was June 26th.
June
The
26th.
motion prevails.
Thank you. Then that is unanimous with the correction to the chair pro tem. Correspondence. Has everyone had a chance to read the correspondence?
Have nothing.
There's one thing that I'd like to ask to be put on for a future agenda, possibly the next one. And there's a letter from the MMA talking about some stuff that's going through the state, the House and Senate, relating to making it easier for people to override the town's zoning bylaws. And so I think it might behoove us to get a little bit more information about this, maybe get the planning board to weigh in on it, and if it's appropriate at that time, maybe send a letter. If it could be put on, if you can ask the chair to possibly put it on for next time. Sure.
And, 1 second, Mr. Earl. Then I take it, Mr. Ryan, that you'll be belling the cat and you'll be getting that information so that, to the chair and your colleagues so that we can flesh this out and thresh it out?
Yeah. Maybe if you could make a copy and send this around.
Or just ask the MMA what the heck this is all about.
But I think it's something we probably should look into, that's all.
I do not disagree, but it's going to be the chair's decision.
Mm-hmm.
I see that Mr. Eckel, Chair of the Finance Committee, has just joined us. Do you wish to address us on a matter? I'll take you out of order if that's acceptable with my colleagues.
I'm here to get the paperwork on the transfers that you guys just voted on.
Well, we haven't yet.
Oh, you haven't? Sorry.
Is there anything else that you need to address us?
Nope, that's it. We're just waiting downstairs to consider a vote after you guys.
Well, then let's get, if there's nothing else in correspondence, let's get right to it. A discussion of the year-end transfer, FY18 funds to offset snow and ice expenditures. Ms. Wrigley, would you like to lead us in this discussion?
As I shared by email with both committees through yours, I think I sent to each board member on the board of the selectmen and then to the chair of the finance committee, hoping that my explanation would have been shared with them. Essentially, this is an annual occurrence for us where we make up the deficit of the current year's snow and ice. So this year, we're 36 and change in deficit, and what you've got before you, which requires, as it does to carry a deficit, the vote and signature from both the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom. So earlier this year, both committees voted to run a deficit. This is now the attempt to erase the deficit, and we're able, and it was part of the Municipal Affordable Act that came through a couple of years ago, giving us more flexibility on where to source the money. And so now we can transfer during the year-end closeout of our books any unexpended balances from budgets. So the 2 line item budgets that I had the accountant work up, property and casualty insurance and telephone. And together, both of those, if you signed it this evening, we're supposed to balance the snow and ice.
Those, if I understand correctly, these are surpluses that we've run in those 2 categories, those line items that you mentioned, and we're taking those surpluses and transferring to something that was already been approved by town meeting as an expenditure, just not the correct amount, and to fund snow and ice.
Right, so these are previously approved appropriations, standard expense appropriations that approved at town meeting. And as we close the book out, both of those have unexpended balances, and so it's a pro forma.
I just wanted to make sure that we let the community know that we're not spending this money on new things. We're spending it on things that have already been approved, we just don't have enough.
Yes, that's the case, as is the case always with us. We don't
Not
spend.
with us, as opposed to other municipal bodies.
I can only
But,
speak for us.
It's a common practice among municipal governments.
yes, it is. But I wanted to just clarify that one point. I see we've had other members of our municipal government join us. Are you also here waiting for the Finance Committee?
They're all finance committee members.
So,
Would you
I
like,
just had them come up, I just texted them, asked them to come join us because I thought you guys had already finished your discussion, and since we were having the discussion, I thought it'd be worthwhile
Yes.
for them to listen.
I was just saying that for the record so that I could perhaps ask if there's, as I asked you, if there's anything that you'd like to add to the discussion tonight on the transfers to fill in the deficits in the snow and ice removal line item.
you ready for a motion?
I was just gonna make one thing that I don't think Bill pointed out, but he had pointed out to me that the savings that he got from the property and casualty insurance is what allowed us to transfer this money. So the work that his team did to get this, the reduction in that line item allows us the flexibility to apply this to the deficit spending that we did for the snow and ice. So normally, I don't want to say normally, historically, I think some of this money's come out of the reserve fund. He didn't ask us for that this year, so I think it's like.
I tried to at town meeting, but they wouldn't, so I figured I'd come up.
Well, the town acts foolishly whenever
But
it
now,
ignores our town
now it's simply,
administrator.
it will return to us in the form of free cash, so.
Well, thank you for
And
pointing.
I think you were pretty active coming down the stretch, so I didn't, I figured it'd be easier for me to do this and allow you, in the end, when I saw the tight funds and didn't know who was coming in late, to do it this way.
Well, the chair of the Finance Committee is quite correct to commend our town administrator. Thank you very much for your budget acumen, or I was going to say superior knowledge. But now I will take a motion, Mr. Hodgson.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B, I move to allow the inter-account transfer of FY18 excess funds from property and casualty insurance and telephone accounts to, as outlined by the town administrator in the material contained in our packet, to offset the deficit in the snow and ice account.
Second. Any further discussion from either my colleagues or anyone in attendance? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. That passes unanimously. Let me fill this stuff out for you so that we can let you do your work. I take it this does not require a signature from anyone other than the chair?
No, the recorded vote, if anyone questions, sufficient.
Then I'll leave you to your work. Thank you very much. Thank you for continuing to work so deeply into the summer. You deserve commendation as well. And thank you guys for running all the way up the stairs.
Been here all of 5 minutes. I'll take it though.
If you want, you can stay. Well, they have been meeting, and I'll mention that in my liaison appointment. Now we have a discussion and a vote regarding appointment of the Assistant Superintendent of Streets. First, I'll ask the town administrator to lead us in this discussion, but I would like, as always, input from our colleague, Mr. Ryan, after he's finished.
And Selectman Ryan, as is the case routinely for these type of recommendations for hires on my working group to make the recommendation. So as my update explains to you, for this level of hire, I do engage a working group. It's a two-step process with regard to making the recommendation. The first is an in-house evaluation of the applications, which occurred. The current Assistant Superintendent, Scott Morris, together with the Highway Superintendent, Mike Clayton, went through, there were 7 applicants to start, went through all of them, decided to interview 4. I had said to them in the end, recommend forward to us only those that you want to recommend, just so that we're not dealing with anything just by numbers. And so what we got were two, and one is a in-house candidate who's currently the crew chief, been here many years. The other was an outside candidate who might be, he was a prospective.
Mr. Wrigley, while I hate to interrupt you, I would like very much,
I think you should stay as chair tonight, if that's okay with the rest of the board.
it's just like,
It's fine with me, Brian.
I have no objection.
it's like Godfather 3. I tried to get out and they keep pulling me back in.
That's not a strong support, but there's no objection.
Well, do you have an objection, Mr.?
No, I don't.
Mr. Town Administrator?
I just like carrying on, you know.
I do apologize for interrupting, but if it was a matter of protocol, Madam Clerk, I'd be happy to give it over to you, but
I would say proceed.
So
Thank you.
we're discussing the prospective appointment this evening
Yes.
of a new assistant highway superintendent. And I was going through orally for the audience what I've put in the report. And I'm at the moment of saying that our group is recommending the hire of Brian, the promotion of Brian Hatch as assistant superintendent. Brian, again, you have all his material, has been a productive worker in the highway for 22 years, has worked his way up to crew chief, respected and liked by the other members of the department. He interviewed well. There's, at the end of that interview, we interviewed the second one too, which I referenced here. And I referenced the second one because that person now is interested in being a candidate for the crew chief position, so we're fortunate that way.
that's not an appointment by the selectmen, though, is it?
It would, yes, because it would be a hire.
Oh, okay.
See, under the governance agreement, you make all appointments to certain departments, including police, fire, and highway. So, in this case, you're appointing through promotion to a new position, a current.
Okay.
And then in the next case, it would be a new hire if that's, we do have at least one inside candidate for that as well. So, because crew chief is not as high an administrative position as the assistant superintendent, I'll be taking a recommendation from Mike and Scott on that one. And they'll be posting immediately so that we can hire or promote with all deliberate speed, so we won't be shorthanded.
Scott's gonna be involved in that?
Huh?
Scott's gonna still be involved in that?
Scott's dedicated.
God bless him. Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, as Bill said, you know, we had two good candidates. Brian, you know, having spent 22 years here, you know, as Bill said, he's well respected by his peers. He's well respected by the fire chief, the police chief, as well as his current bosses, Scott and Mike. So it's, and, you know, he's committed to trying to fill Scott's shoes, even though it might be difficult, but it's, you know, he's proved himself over the years, and he definitely interviewed well, and I think he can do the job. You know, I've known him for 20-some odd years, and he's been a good guy all that time, so it's, he's a good hire.
Well, the board and the town are grateful to you, Mr. Ryan, for your involvement in this process and your knowledge of the people and personnel in all those three departments. Would you like to lead us with the motion, and then we'll have, see if there's further discussion?
On the recommendation of the Superintendent of Streets, Mike Clayton, I move that the board appoint Brian Hatch as Assistant Superintendent of Streets for the town of Stowe.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and it's seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment by any of my colleagues?
The only other thing I'll say is that I very much like this process that we've been going through. You know, having the, you know, police chief, fire chief, highway, really cross-pollinating, I'll say, between, you know, or being involved in the interviews of other departments, because they're all gonna have to work together. And I think it's been working out very, very well.
I don't know, working jointly together, cross-pollination, might, have some unfortunate connotations. I don't think we want to bring to this.
I hadn't given it any thought until you brought it up today.
But it is a worthwhile process. It's worked very well for us, and again, we appreciate your involvement and the town administrator's involvement. Any further questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the appointment of Assistant Superintendent Brian Hatch, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Seeing no nays, that's unanimous. That brings us to our town administrator's report.
Well, two of the items, the first two items that appear in my activities report, I just discussed them as each of them with you. So one was the snow and ice deficit, and the hires. The third one's for executive session, so I'm good.
All right, the only thing, going back up to that, can we make sure that we scrub the records? If I'm not mistaken, the new public records law says that applications or resumes don't get put in the public record for these hires. We should double check that. We've been trying to keep,
I think we're clear on what does or doesn't go. I think the nature of our discussion's been whether you folks should see things that otherwise wouldn't go in the public record. And I think you viewing them, but not asking questions about particulars, allows them not to go into the minutes, i.e. the public record, and there was,
thank you for that
So
clarification.
I think we're doing okay there.
I thank you for the clarification. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't putting stuff in that shouldn't go in. Mr. Town Administrator, normally we would allow you to proceed to the friendly town, but we'll need you for our executive session, so I'll ask my colleagues to present their liaison reports in summary fashion if possible. Can we start out with the
None for
Madam
me.
Clerk?
We have a SMOT meeting tomorrow. I'll have some more information later, but nothing else from me.
Yes, there's some interesting stuff coming up from SMOT. I also refer the clerk to our correspondence file. There's an interesting thing there from a citizen in Stowe who wants to bring up the use of herbicides to the Recreation Commission. So that's something you may want to keep apprised of. I don't know if, you don't have to attend the meeting, of course,
Yeah.
but it is a matter of concern to one of our citizens, and the correspondence from, and the from that citizen, and the email from Laura Greenow, the Rec Commissioner, is also in the file.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan?
I visited with the Historical Commission the other day, and I had seen on their agenda, that they were gonna be talking about the Town Hall Building Committee, so I went there and had some conversations with them about that, and they have put forward Marilyn Zaborski to be the Historical Commission's representative, so that's moving forward.
Who's our representative?
Me,
So I said you, that's why you're at the meeting.
I figured I'd go and
I should have known there was some reason.
You should stay around for liaison reports more often, Mr.
Yeah,
Administrator.
you're amazed what you can learn.
Jeez.
Anything
Good
else?
choice in any event.
Yes.
Anything else, Mr. Ryan?
no, great. My understanding is that there was, one of the members there is also on CPC, and they had it scheduled to get somebody appointed to that also, so that's moving along, but Historical Commission's raring to go, and, they're excited about the prospect, so we started having some conversations, lightly about what, some of the stuff they may bring as far as trying to make sure that we stay on target to make sure we can use CPC funds, in order to, because if we do certain things, it helps from a historical perspective. And they also mentioned that there might be possibilities of, state and federal grants that we might be able to chase for that too, so. We'll see as things progress.
Anything else?
Nope.
Thank you very much for all your activity, Mr. Ryan. Mr. Hawks?
Nothing in my own Ral, I'll touch on one of yours just because you came a little bit late last night. Lakeland Commission's not meeting until August 1st. I have nothing else. School-related stuff, everything's kind of quiet.
I went to a ZBA, and as usual, I asked them if they had anything they wanted to liaison with the board about, and they had nothing for me.
No, my only comment on that, I was there as an abutter to a hearing.
Oh.
But I stayed a little bit later, and they did a reorganization. And they couldn't sell one member of the board as chairman. So Mr. Tarnooser abstained, but he agreed to serve his final year. His term runs out next year, after many, many years. He will remain as chair, and Bill Byron is the clerk.
Who also accepted his appointment while abstaining.
With an abstention, that's right.
Anything, yes, I was going to mention, but thank you very much for bringing that up. Anything else?
No, sir.
As you know, FinCom is continuing to meet well into the summer. They have some ideas that they want to present to us in the fall. I think I talked about that last time. LACAC is meeting regularly. They're preparing a mission statement. They're trying to get better reception for Comcast viewers. They've had an unfortunate matter that has been bugging everyone in the Tri-Town member district for the last 6 months, which is how to broadcast or how to pay for the broadcast at school committee meetings. The one possible, and I've expressed my frustration to the town administrator because he had to get involved, the one possible meaningful use of Tri-Town that I have seen in my 10-year association with that committee could have been this issue. And so I know, Mr. Hawks, you are our liaison, but I'm going to urge that come September, we either hold the meeting here in Lancaster or we hold it here. And if we hold it here, my daughter will bring cupcakes, but no more delay on this. And I'll make my point more forcefully about that next month.
Has that matter been resolved?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I received, Ken Troop sent out an email to myself, my two colleagues, and the superintendent that I opened yesterday. It might have come over the weekend. And they've offered for the district's consideration what I think will be a completely acceptable offer on.
Which will be discussed by the school committee? Or
I don't
Was it
know
going
to
to-
what degree the school district, this was basically driven by the superintendent and the chairman of the chairperson, along with discussions beginning with Bolton TV, more specifically. I think the chair of their board, for lack of a better term. And it went on and was unresolved, and essentially, the district asked myself and two colleagues to get involved, and because we were meeting regularly with the superintendent. In any event, I'll send that email that we received. The district hasn't responded to it yet, but based on what I've heard about it, the problems, I would be shocked if they didn't just bless it.
Well, with all due respect, I don't want to get drilled down into the granular here because we've wasted enough time on this stupid issue. But the LACAC, while they did support that measure, they had a number of reservations and a lot of questions.
The one that just came?
Yeah, and so
Well, then
it's
then
infuriating.
You guys should have it, because, you know.
It's infuriating. It's an example of everything that's wrong with government, the way this thing has just dragged out and ballooned over the past 6 months. But I'm not going to waste my colleagues' time anymore with my venting.
And I'm happy to hand it off to anybody, any group or person who
As-
wants to drive it.
as
So
you-
I will send the email that I just got to LACAC and the board, because essentially the LACAC works for the board. It's different in Bolton. I think we did the wise thing back when the governance agreement was formed, which is the LACAC is just another agent of the town, appointed by the Board of Selectmen the Board of Selectmen make determinations in the end. It's an advisory group to the LACAC. In Bolton, they're separate from the government and exist in and of themselves with their own governance agreement, which is what I think inherently made it more difficult to solve what is a straightforward, simple problem.
I think you put, Mr. Town Administrator, your finger right on the source of the mischief.
So in any event, I'll share with you what I have, and then unless somebody calls me, I'll just assume somebody else will close out the deal.
Well, I'm hopeful that that measure will be passed by all three towns, LACACs, or whatever their cognate names are, and we'll get this thing, we'll get the school committee meetings up and broadcast again starting in September. But it's been a very frustrating process, and I've tried to keep it off the town administrator's desk, but it simply has not been possible. Mr. Byron, we were just congratulating you on your nomination and election as clerk to the ZBA. Anything you'd like to add?
That's the spirit.
Well, if that's everything on Tri-Town, then that's the end of my liaison. And so we will now go.
Mr. Chairman, would you like a motion?
Yes, please.
I said that.
I've got it.
You can.
I move to go into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, for the purpose of discussing strategy with respect to collective bargaining and to adjourn thereafter.
Second.
And that would include our town administrator, our administrative assistant, I take it.
Of course.
Yes, I don't think it needs to be said, you're quite right. This will require a roll call vote. I'll start from my left.
Aye.
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 Thank you, and would you all excuse us?
You want to stay here?
Okay.